This is the time to stand up now. We can't carry on like this.
I do not believe that Councillor Robert Barnes of Chadderton South, the Conservative Councillor Robert Barnes of Chadderton South, to be a rapist. I do not believe that.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Very good evening. It is Sunday, the 25th of September 2022. My name is Raja Mia, and this is one of our Sunday night subscriber-only Recusant 9 transmissions. To those of you who have managed to get the link from elsewhere, please consider supporting the channel and buying me a coffee. The link is there. It is how these transmissions are possible, and let's see how we get on. Someone called me earlier today and said, Raja, you need to just put these out for free. And I said, yes, I agree. I do, but I can't afford to do that. And the response was, well, you won't win the election this time and you won't get rid of enough Labour Party councillors. And again, I said, I agree. But since when is all of that pressure on me? So that's where I'm up to with these transmissions, and why they're member only. I'll try, if I can be bothered. I never got the time. I'll try and make sense of it and edit it. I'm not an editor. I don't enjoy doing it. Editing an hour and a half or a 2 hour transmission takes about 7 or 8 hours, and even then I don't do it well. So if you don't see edited transmissions, that's why. Nonetheless, happy to be back. Happy to see you all. And brother dropped this off for me, this mug, or a collection of mugs and a book. So thank you very, very much, Anne, Friday night. And I'll do a review on the book. It's called Child Day. So I'll do a review on that during the week at some point. We know that this town is corrupt. And we know how deep the corruption in this town runs, from bent politicians and council officers to their friends in the press, and extending to Greater Manchester Police. This town of ours is run like something out of a history book I read when I was younger of how the Stasi operated. That's how this town is run, Stasi-like. And the dictator at the top, the one who needs to be protected, who Sean Fielding fell on his, I wouldn't say sword, his plastic knife perhaps, was Jim McMahon. AROOJ Shah fell protecting Jim McMahon, and Amanda Chadderton is now blocking calls for a public inquiry because the public inquiry won't actually expose anything Amanda Chadderton's particularly done. It will expose, once again, the samosa-nibbling MP, Jim McMahon. The Labour Party cannot allow Oldham to unravel because Jim McMahon is the shadow minister in Sir Keir Starmer's Labour Party. Shadow minister, senior shadow minister. And Andy Burnham now is neck deep in the scandal because it was his team of cover-up merchants, con artists, charlatans, call them what you want, who, via these assurance reviews, the one in Manchester, the one in Oldham, the one in Rochdale, it's a con. Burnham brought in Malcolm Newsom and the self-declared Labour Party man, Gary Ridgway, to manage the situation. They can't even tell us who ordered in Manchester the police to turn off the investigation against 97 known child sex offenders. Turned it off just like that, and they won't tell us who it was, and they can't tell us who it was, and want us to go away. And in Oldham, they won't tell us how many children were groomed and gang raped. So Burnham is neck deep in this scandal. This is a man who wants to be the future Prime Minister, along with the samosa nibbler. And if it unravels in Oldham, it'll unravel in Huddersfield, it'll unravel in Manchester, it'll unravel in Rochdale, Telford, everywhere. It'll just unravel. What Burnham should have done was what they did in Telford and appoint a proper judge in exactly the same format for a judge-led investigation. So if it wasn't going to be a public inquiry, at least it'd be a genuine independent investigation led by judges who knew what they were doing. But it hasn't. And then we end up with the assurance review. We get Robert Barnes over the line in Chadderton South, and he repays all of us. He repays this town by standing up and standing alongside us and refusing to remain silent to the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of our town's children. From the second he was elected, Charlotte Green, that disgraceful so-called journalist from Chadderton, from where? Didsbury, started reporting how he had won, backed off a racist campaign. There's nothing racist about our campaign. Debbie Abrams stood up in Parliament and attacked the campaign. Jim McMahon has been calling us racist all along. And so, what transpired and what has transpired has not surprised me a single bit. This town has formed, the politicians have formed, the council has formed, and the police have formed. And once again, I state, I do not believe Robert Barnes to be a rapist. And I'm sure this will play out in the fullness of time, but in the fullness of time, this man's reputation will be completely damaged. And having met Robert twice, I think, in real life. Once was at that council meeting, so those people who claim I have this long-standing relationship with Robert Barnes actually are very, very mistaken. I've met him twice, and once was after that council meeting, where a number of you were with me, and we said thank you to him and some of the others. Having met him, and with what he's now been alleged with, and how the scumbag conservatives around him have abandoned him, I worry if he will still be with us come Christmas. With Stephen Walker committing suicide as a consequence of this, I worry for Robert Barnes and whether or not he also will commit suicide. And I do not say this to alarm anyone. I say this out of genuine concern. So if any of you are in contact with Robert, you don't have to phone him. You don't have to even text him or drop him a message. But myself knowing when I've been put in those places and described and portrayed in ways I'd never imagined myself ever to be. Suicide becomes an option. So, in the link you got with some of my words, I said, I think the heading was set up or rape. Actually, there's a third option in all of this: set up, consensual, or rape. Now, Robert's married, and I don't think for 1 second it's consensual anything happened, but I need to put that third option in because the police will get hold of this video and look through it to find in any way in which they can charge me for something. These are indeed mafia-like tactics. These are indeed mafia-like tactics because this town is run by the mafia. This town is run by the tyrant Jim McMahon and the Labour Party. Those of you who've seen that Al Jazeera expose into the Labour Party. Whatever you think of Corbyn, if you've seen that Al Jazeera expose into the Labour Party, you'll see exactly what sort of tactics they use to discredit and demonise decent people who do nothing other than dare stand up for themselves and their communities. When Robert was first elected, apart from the Labour Party scumbags outraged and screaming racism, because that's all they know, racist, 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 what I found more disgraceful was the behaviour of the Saddleworth Conservatives, who conspired with the mainstream media to further demonise Robert, one of their own Conservatives. Max Woodvine, on record talking to that pyjama wearing southern pretend whatever he is from the mill. Hyacinth Bouquet, Pam Byrne. No secret of her friendship with AROOJ Shah and where her loyalties lie. And as soon as news of Robert's arrest started to spread, the gloating from the Saddleworth Conservatives, gloating. And as for his Oldham compatriots, well, you've seen how they've behaved with me and some of us. These weasels immediately started to be concerned not about Robert, but how it might affect them. So they purged Robert straight away from the Oldham Conservatives Facebook page. Purged him straight away. And the likes of Beth Sharp, who tries to present herself as this caring councillor, female Conservative councillor, wants Robert to stand down as a Conservative. The Saddleworth lot want him suspended. And the Oldham lot want him to stand down as a Conservative. And once his name's cleared, and if his name's cleared, you can join again. And they did do that, Oldham I. Since you put it up there, I'll put it up there. It is true that in the many attempts to set me up, this coalition of cartels, bent politicians, malicious bloggers attempted to put pressure on Samantha to claim that I picked her up from a police station and was one of the men who drove her away to be raped. This is how crazy this town has got. So Beth Sharp, Quigg, Dave Arnott want Robert to resign from the party, step down from the party, and then even when his name's cleared, he can join again. When your back's against the wall, you know who your friends really are, don't you? When your back's against the wall, you know who your friends really are. Labour Party politicians I've managed to get information from are sharing stories that the allegations against Robert include him kissing one of his constituents. Again, I don't believe that to be true. But let's be clear here. What he's being arrested for is rape. This isn't snogging someone. This isn't touching someone's arm or squeezing the bottom or something like that. This is penetration, forcible penetration, because that's what rape is. And the police, and I'll go through the sort of evidence that Detective Sergeant Christopher Dean presented when attempting to frame me. The police were quick to go and arrest Robert. And Charlotte Green coordinated with Oldham News Media, that's the cartel-controlled Pakistani mobster-affiliated news page that so many of you follow, along with that Spotted Oldham that so many of you follow. Within hours of Charlotte Green's article, not naming him, thereby whipping it up even more and causing more anxiety. Oldham News and Media started gloating about how it's one of the ones who've been speaking about the grooming gangs, and isn't it great that you're going to get some? You're going to get some back. Just you wait. So Robert was visiting a constituent. Those of you who've seen him since he became a councillor, he's prolific with his casework. Day in, day out, he's out pounding the streets, writing to the council, reporting on issues that the local constituents are concerned about. And so he went to a constituent's house after being invited, asked to go and attend. And the consequence of that is a rape allegation. The Oldham Conservatives, fair weather friends, want him to stand down from being a Conservative. The Saddleworth lot want him suspended from the party. So one lot want him to voluntarily step down, the other lot want him to be forcibly suspended from the party. But no, it means he still can be a councillor, still is a councillor, and still can attend council meetings. Remember, he's not even been charged. He's not even been charged. They're doing to Robert exactly what they did to me. Well, there's this thing that goes out where they don't really name you, but then all of the entourage around the smear campaign, the Labour Party smear campaign, double down. So Robert's on bail. The likelihood is, the reason he's not issued a statement or anything is because his bail conditions restrict him. My bail conditions currently restrict me as well. So whilst I'm getting abused all over the place, I can't say anything. It was the same with the AROOJ Shah case until I had the bail conditions finally lifted at the last court hearing that some of you were at, even though the case has already collapsed months earlier. And unfortunately, David, it isn't innocent until proven guilty, because these bastards will smear him and smear him And it'll drag out, in my opinion, until the elections, if not longer. And say he is proven innocent, and I believe he will be proven innocent. Look what happened when my court case collapsed. Did a single newspaper report on it? No. Not a single newspaper. These people are disgraceful. They cannot be negotiated with. They cannot be reasoned with. What did you expect from a coalition of partners who were complicit in the cover-up of the grooming and gang rape of what? Hundreds of working class white girls? Thousands of working class white girls in our town? How many? They won't say. What did you think these people were going to do? I genuinely feel for Robert's well-being. And it's such a shame that those who benefit from him have abandoned him. They're concerned that they will lose votes because of the allegation. Ordinarily, what would happen on a rape allegation such as this, not just such as this, or just on any rape allegation, is that the victim would go to St. Mary's, the clinic, there'd be samples and swipes and semen tests and all of that sort of stuff. I look forward to seeing all of that evidence presented by this in accelerated special measures proven paedophile protecting Labour Party in bed with Greater Manchester Police. I look forward to seeing all of that evidence having been collated prior to his arrest. And I agree with you, Lynn. I think it was Lynn who put the question up. Robert should, if he's forced out or if he's made to feel unwelcome enough where he can't stand as a Conservative councillor, he should just become an independent. A Chadderton independent. He should just become a Chadderton independent. Let's be honest, of the 1,200 or 1,300 that voted for him, they'd all still vote for him as an independent because he's a good local councillor. Look at the Conservatives nationally. It's not like they're gaining any seats anywhere or gaining any new voters anywhere, is it? What was Liz Truss's nonsense today? I forget what you think about the budget. What was Liz Truss's nonsense today? They need more immigrants in because the businesses that support them can't get enough cheap labour. So they want more immigrants for the cheap labour. So everything the majority of people who voted Conservative or supported them in the working class towns where I live and operate. That's why they voted for him. Was to stop this or get a grip on this, but no, she wants to bring in more immigrants. And it'll go worse and worse for them nationally. I think he'd do well as an independent. And indeed, Jack, indeed, his poor wife. He always, I'm not going to mention her name, he always speaks fondly of her. And you're right, Gary. Because what this means is that a councillor cannot visit a constituent on his own anymore. That's what this means. There's got to be two of them. At the time I started campaigning against Jim McMahon, AROOJ Shah, Sean Fielding. These people had many attempts to try and frame me. Separate to the atrocious fabrication that I picked Samantha up, that's recent, from the police station. First time I'd met the young woman was in the council meeting 2 years ago. At no point has she said anything otherwise. Even when she ranted and raved at me, at no point has she said anything otherwise. Earlier on, the cartels with the Labour Party supporters had identified young women to try and claim, they were training them to try and claim, fabricate stories that had raped them when they were children. This isn't new to these people. The police wouldn't go and arrest any of these people because Greater Manchester Police are bent. The tactic of trying to lure me into some sort of meeting with young women or older women isn't new. I'm just not interested. And I know Robert isn't either, but Robert would have definitely gone to a meeting with a constituent who'd called him to say, I've got an issue, can you come round and see me? Now, this is what happens, or has happened elsewhere. So I'll go through the three options. One is he went round to a woman's house, a constituent's house, pinned her down and raped her. I think that's preposterous, and I don't think that's at all what happened. Option two, the constituent thought she might get what she needed if she offered something extra. An exchange took place, and then afterwards, when he couldn't deliver what she thought she was getting, she decided to phone the police. I'm not saying that's what happened, I'm going through scenarios. So some sort of form of consensual exchange. And then she didn't get what she thought she was going to get. I know that similar scenario I've heard many a time in the field of politics. Do I think Robert would have done that? No, I don't think so. I don't think he's that sort of man. And that leaves us with a third option. That this is nothing more than just a setup with someone with links directly or indirectly to the Labour Party, or even the cartels or the paedophiles that he's been speaking out against so well, so strongly, so passionately and holding to account Amanda Chadderton in a way that a newly elected councillor has never done before, never mind someone who's been there for 20 years, such as Howard Sykes. Every time he stands up, they're scared. They've already reported him to the standards. Who did that? I think it was the Lib Dems, the Labour Party's partners. Was it Mark Kenyon? I'm not sure. I'm pretty, from what I recall, it was the Lib Dems who reported him to standards. And I agree with you, Karen. I'm simply going through the three possible scenarios it can be. I'm disgusted at the behaviour of the Conservatives, but I'm not at all surprised. Purging him from their Facebook page. Purging his speech, purging him from their Facebook page. You bunch of cowards. Spineless scumbags. You don't deserve to be councillors, any of you. Self-serving. You've hung him out to dry. You've condemned him for your own actions. What, Sam Al-Hamdani that reported him to standards, Jack? Is that who it was? In that council meeting, so we're clear on how corrupt this council is. In that council meeting, at the beginning of that council meeting on the 7th of September, and sorry if I'm sniffling, I am full of a cold, I have doused myself up. In that council meeting on the 7th, right at the beginning, both Brian Hoban and Mark Wilkinson stood and made objections. The Borough Solicitor, Paul Entwistle, who is responsible, and I think more so, the head Director of Constitutional Services, Elizabeth Drogan, they doctored the bloody minutes of the previous council meeting. They'd falsified the minutes. Black and white, proven. They'd repeatedly doctored, altered, deleted events, exchanges from the minutes. And the Labour Party lot still passed them, and Elizabeth Drogan and Paul Bentwistle were looking at each other because they'd been called out. They doctored the minutes. They won't keep their seats safe, Sheila. We'll take them out in. We'll take them out in Royton North. The Royton Independence Party can get going. Those two Conservative councillors will lose. And I'd like to see Beth Sharp retain her seat in St James with the way the National Conservatives are behaving. Particularly as Beth Sharp works directly for an MP, for a Conservative MP. Conservative MP who, it's the second one she's worked for, but when I've checked her records, both of them voted. She works for Conservative MPs who voted to not feed children over Christmas with the school meals thing. We'll see how that plays out. Speaking of meetings, I hear there's one this week on Thursday. Hopefully we'll have more movement from the Royton, from what will be the Royton Independence Party. For those of you who are listening from there, I've checked with the Electoral Commission and registering parties. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks. So if you want to register your party, you'll have to get the form sent off by, I reckon, the second week in October. To have it back by the end of the year, so you can launch your party and move forward from January till May. Honestly, Julie, my thoughts are it's more likely some drug user. And she's got something in exchange. You all saw the video. You all saw AROOJ Shah's video. The firebombing of her car. Let's go back to some setups. Let me bring something up. This is not new in this town. So this is a dodgy councillor who ended up claiming he had consensual sex with a 16-year-old when he was arrested for rape. But there's a separate story to him which I think is interesting. Cleared councillor wants man who set him up. An Oldham councillor believes he had drugs planted in his car and want police to find out who did it. Police said they eliminated Labour councillor Asaf Ali from their inquiries after the drugs were found in the wheel arch of his car. So someone planted drugs in the wheel arch of his car and then phoned the police. Mr. Ali added, "The past 2.5 weeks have been testing times. I am grateful to my family, friends, constituents, local community, and most of all, my Labour colleagues for their support and trust. I have faith in the justice system, and this experience has reinforced that belief." So the history of setting people up in this town, politicians in this town, is not new. Not new at all. And the history of setting people up in this town is also not new. Thugs firebomb Oldham Council leader's car in cowardly, appalling attack. 13th of July 2021. Howard Sykes, leader of the Liberal Democrats at the council, called for all decent people to stand up for the values of this country. In a statement issued on behalf of the party, he said, "The attack is appalling. It is a frightening attack on an individual, but it also demonstrates the threat to people in public life and stops decent people from being involved in it. This cannot be allowed to continue, and not only must we stop this criminal attack, but also the abusive approach that has been too much of the politics in Oldham recently, and in the UK in recent years." So it's clearly making reference to me. Of course, Howard Sykes had nothing to say after the video came out demonstrating something else. And over a year after this cowardly and appalling firebombing attack took place, which Howard Sykes said all decent people should stand up for the values of this country, Howard Sykes has got nothing to say that over a year since, no one has been charged. And Howard Sykes has got nothing to say about the video that came out clearly demonstrating something else had transpired, rather than an attack on the values of our country. Why is that, Howard? This is the same Howard Sykes who was pals with Cyril Smith, the same Howard Sykes who stood up and eulogised over Rod Blythe after he'd resigned following his arrest and failed suicide. Once he was caught for child sex exploitation, which he was later convicted for. And this is the same Howard Sykes who was caught and turned up on the doorstep of an elderly lady trying to weasel his way out after he was sharing confidential information with a malicious blogger who used it to attack her. And just so we're clear what this framing looked like, or this attempted framing looked like, this was the Mail, a national newspaper, we agree. First female Muslim leader of Oldham Council's car is firebombed as local MP reveals community activists. Initially they named me until I exchanged emails with the Daily Mail and they took my name out. Have started campaign claiming town is becoming a Muslim enclave. Labour MP for Oldham West Jim McMahon rushed to condemn the attack. That's a samosa nibbler. These are his tweets. In reference to me, attempting to frame me, and I'll show you what a framing attempt, genuine attempt to frame me is. A change petition has been set up which demands we, the undersigned people of Oldham, demand that the BCOE issue a statement confirming this proposal will not go forward, blah, blah, blah. They wanted to swap the constituency in Oldham West and Royton. Remember, I objected to it and I set up a change petition, all lawful, all legal. What they wanted to do was shift Royton out and put St. Mary's in and Alexander in. So Oldham West, they call it a compact inner constituency. I call it a Muslim majority constituency because that's what it would become and I object to it. The originator, so that's me. You see, the weasel can't even name me, but he knows who he's talking about. There's no ambiguity here. Had issued a podcast being shared by a local independent party. It goes further to say, not only is she the town's first Muslim leader, Oldham is now a Muslim-controlled town. Published the day her car was set alight. The inference is there straight away that I published something the day AROOJ Shah's car was set alight. I go on to say, in areas across the United Kingdom, a new nation is being constructed, carved out from exploiting the very freedoms and values which underpin our way of life. And loyalty declared to their religion ahead of the land they gave them and their families at home. And their medieval prejudices validated by those in positions of power. Well, Jim McMahon, you attending male Muslim men only events where women are excluded, I consider to be a medieval prejudice, you prick. No MP should be endorsing those prejudices or homophobia or anti-Semitism or any of those things that are extensive in Oldham's Muslim community. And he objects to me saying, and I would rather our children and grandchildren did not wake up one day to find our town all about an enclave, I didn't actually say it like that, of a new Muslim nation within a nation. The day may yet come where we'll turn it around and with their eyes ask us, I don't know what that says, why did we sit back and do nothing? To do something I've always talked about. Come on, what is the do something I've always talked about? It sure as hell isn't to go and blow up someone's car, is it? is to turn up on polling day and put a cross in a box and vote. But this is the bit where this samosa nibbler tries to frame me. Published the day her car was set alight. Published the day her car was set alight. Her car was torched at 1:30 AM on Tuesday of that day. 1:30 AM. So just the article I published was published around noon. About 12 hours or so later. Do you see? Attempt to frame me by this prick. Thank you, Ian. That's exactly what I say we should do. And you know what, Sheila? It's because it proves it was a setup. And now the police won't do anything. And not only will the police now not do anything, not only will the police now not do anything, the police are giving awards to AROOJ SHAH, the Chief Constable, the most senior police officer in the town. Yeah, do you see it? Lovely afternoon, meeting my most favourite and the most efficient Chief Constable GMP has ever had, Stephen Watson. Honoured to have been presented with an award for my contribution to public service. That's how bent all of this is. That's how corrupt all of this is. That is how bent all of this is. Her car gets blown up. A video emerges that suggests something entirely different from what is alleged took place. Their attempts to frame me for it collapse. The police then, a year passes and they won't say anything about the most senior politician in this town having her car blown up outside her house. And instead, she's tweeting how she's been presented with an award. Now you tell me this town is not bent and it does not include Greater Manchester Police. Tell me I'm making it up. I don't believe Robert Barnes raped anyone. I do not believe that man has it in him. I believe this is a coordinated setup. And that Labour Party politicians seem to have inside information that he kissed someone. The cartel affiliated Oldham News and Media seem to know stuff before, as did the malicious blogger. And Charlotte Green playing the game the way she did to whip it all up. No. No. Yes, Oldham. And Chris Gloucester, in his attempt to defend corruption in Greater Manchester Police, said it's not just the police that's bent, the council's bent as well. That was a Lib Dem councillor, former police officer, Gloucester. His defence of a bent police force as well. It doesn't matter that they're just bent. They're bent police officers as well. They're bent councillors as well. Sorry, I'm just I plugged my phone in for that. Got 119 of you viewing. I have 131 subscribers, so I'm sure you're not all subscribers. If you've managed to get hold of this link, and I know many of you do, share, it's fine. It's what it is. If you manage to get hold of this link, and you can't pay the 75 pence a week, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to keep going? I think his innocence comes down to, mate, I think he was clearly there, because that's what a setup entails. She lured him in as a constituent. I think the evidence, if you've raped someone, the evidence is clearly semen, isn't it? Or some form of DNA. Is that not right? I'm not an expert in it, mate, I'm afraid. I'm not afraid. Thankfully, I'm not an expert in it. But I'd imagine pinning someone down. There's nails involved or some scuffle, or I don't know. But there'd be some form of evidence, wouldn't you think? I can't see it, can you? Oh, popped round to visit a constituent, pinned her down, raped her, and went home for my tea. It's not the type. He's not the type. Thank you, Lynn, for buying me 5 coffees. You don't need to. None of you need to buy me 5 coffees. Those of you who are here who are already subscribed, you do enough. And I can't even see that, Sheila. I just don't think he's a type. He'll be on bail now for a month. My understanding he got picked up. I think after the council meeting. So after the 7th was when he got picked up. So he'll be on bail till the 7th of October. And they'll bail him again and bail him again, which is what they did with me, and keep bailing him for as long as possible. They'll ruin his chances of getting re-elected. Can you imagine coping with that every day, hanging over you? They've destroyed, and I have no doubt this is, having seen the evidence that I'm going to share with you about DS Christopher Dean, I have no doubt that what they're doing to Robert is coordinated and involves the police. Yeah, Julia, it's that. It's exactly that. Let me show you some of the paperwork I've got in relation to AROOJ Shah's case that's collapsed. It took a year, give or take, 9 months. It took 9 months for it to collapse. I've still got one hanging over me. I can't talk about. But I think the trial will be February, March, April sometime. So that'll be 2 years. And my defence against the second case is actually stronger than my defence against this first case. Yes, mate, it will cost him for a solicitor. He works, doesn't he? Yeah, Sheila. You're set up, I think so too. I hope so, Amanda. I genuinely hope so. I know the only reason I'm with you here today is because I had a very young daughter who just look up at me. And if not for that, I know I would not be here. Because these people lied and lied again. And when the truth came out, none of them published the truth. I'm working out whether to... I'll do it this way, I think, because you can see it better this way. Let me just... you don't need to see me. Yeah. So this is a summary of key evidence that was given to me. I've deleted the second case out. So if you can see any marks on it, it's because I've gone over it in white. So the key witness is AROOJ Shah, and apparently the person caused had by racially, religiously aggravated social media posts. And this is from the detective sergeant. Key evidence. It's better, isn't it? This case relates to several articles posted online by the defendant, a male by the name of Raja Mia. The defendant has posted hundreds of videos, blogs and posts via his social media platform over the last 4 years, and the majority of them, whilst making for difficult and uncomfortable reading, do not constitute any criminal offences. They do come very close to the threshold in a lot of cases, however, do not usually tip over. That first paragraph is significant because it's confirmation from Greater Manchester Police that they are monitoring me. And they read and follow everything I say. That's confirmation that I am being watched. A law-abiding, decorated anti-racist that has spent 20 years and more of my life helping safeguard our country from extremists and being monitored by Greater Manchester Police. That is admission in black and white. I don't know how you come very close to the threshold. Excuse me 1 second. They do come very close to the threshold in a lot of cases. I don't know how you come very close to breaking the law. I didn't think it worked like that. If I'm driving at 30 miles an hour, I'm driving in a 30 mile an hour zone, I'm legal. I'm not driving, I'm not breaking the speed limit, am I? On this occasion, however, GMP have received 2 separate complaints around the same time, relating to separate articles posted by the same defendant. Neither the victim or the witness have ever met the defendant or had any direct communication with him. This all stems from articles posted on the defendant's social media platforms. I have been able to attribute the Recusant 9 website and Facebook account to the defendant, as not only does he sign off his post with his name, Raja Mia MBE, he also posts recordings of his live feeds onto there which have his face and voice. And having interviewed him in custody, I can confirm that this is the same person. For ease of reference, I will first cover the matter relating to religiously aggravated public order. On the 22nd of June 2021, GMP received a notification from OMBC. There you go. The council reported me to the police. Who in the council, he won't say. In relation to a post made by the defendant on his Recusant 9 Facebook page. So this also confirms that the council monitor my posts and my Facebook and my YouTube content. You, the Oldham taxpayer, are funding the council to monitor my posts. The content of the post is as followed. Really pleased to see Lewis Quigg, the chairman of the Conservatives, blah, blah, blah. I'll get onto that. I'll show the entire post in a minute. So this, remember. So there's no ambiguity here. I have an honours degree in history. And I have a 20+ year in building community relations and safeguarding this country from extremism. I've advised multiple government ministers and have worked across the world on behalf of our country. So what I say and where I say it from is from a place of expertise. This is a police officer who has none of that experience, insight, or expertise, who is now passing judgment. In reviewing this post, so he's passing judgment. I can identify that it is clearly in bad taste? Who determines bad taste? And since when did your bad taste become a crime? Who determines bad taste? Are the proven paedophile protectors from Greater Manchester Police in a position to determine bad taste? I think not. RM makes comment that the protesters outside the Elbit factory in Oldham are an anti-Semitic group. He does not provide any further to support these comments, and based on the MEN reports I have seen of the protests, it is simply a case of people protesting against a company who are alleged to be making and supplying military technology and weapons to the Israeli military. Hey, dickhead. They were smashing windows. They were daubing red paint. You're a police officer. They were illegally entering these buildings. In the world I come from, those are criminal actions, you prick. Well, they are. Since when was smashing windows? Since when was smashing windows simply a case of people protesting? This is a detective sergeant. I am struggling to see why this is anti-Semitic. Well, mate, Detective Sergeant Christopher Dean from Tameside Police Station, do you have 20 years of experience in fighting terrorists and extremists? Are you a decorated anti-racist? What's your expertise in this field, Detective Sergeant? And just because you are struggling to determine why this is anti-Semitic does not mean that it isn't, because you're not an authority on this. I am an authority on this. According to him, he has found there has been no show of hatred specifically towards the Jewish faith. Let's stop that just there. And there is that as well, isn't it? He's taking his information from an MEN newspaper article. I'm referring to the event. He's taking his defense of it not being anti-Semitic from a newspaper article rather than the images that were actually there on the day. Bear with me. Let me see if I can bring it up. If I can find it, I'll like to share it with you. So just bear with me. I am trying to find something. Here we go. This is the work I put in writing that article at the time. All cross-referenced. You can see. Everyone is linked. Here. Twitter page of photographs of mainly Pakistani protesters at the Elbit factory in Oldham. Notice the banner, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Link here. Let's see if that link works. This is the Elbit factory protest. Young women, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." From the river to the sea, for Palestine to be free, Detective Sergeant Christopher Dean, is code. It's not even code. It's a call for the eradication of Israel. Because what exists between the river and the sea is Israel. Now, if you want me to give you a geography lesson, you numpty, I would have. That banner is from that day, and you can see in that picture mainly Pakistani protesters. You can see it there. "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." That is an anti-Semitic banner. It's also a Hamas slogan. For those of you who need reminding, Hamas is a registered terrorist organization. It's on our list as Hamas terrorists. And for very good reason. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I have found there has been no show of hatred specifically towards the Jewish faith. The expert Detective Sergeant Christopher Dean has found there has been no show of hatred specifically towards the Jewish faith, having studied the MEN reports. That is exactly what is happening, Sheila, thank you. There is children there being radicalised. That is exactly what I was objecting to and writing about. You can see. Let's carry on. Come on, DS Dean. The defendant, so that's me clearly, goes on to state that this has been endorsed by the Labour Party politicians as an oversimplified Muslim victimhood narrative, which has created a fertile breeding ground for radicalisation of a new generation of young people in our town, and that their actions and the actions of senior council officers is helping create the next Abedi or Begum. Salman Abedi and Shamima Begum. Yeah. The government's counter-terrorism strategy is very clear that an oversimplified victim narrative, Muslim victimhood narrative, is particularly used by those who use the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to recruit and radicalise young people. That's not me saying it. That is dozens and dozens of government experts as a consequence of case studies of jihadists that have been taken from here somewhere else on that journey, have been radicalised through the Israeli-Palestinian, through the oversimplification and Muslim victimhood narrative of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So in my attempt to warn against clear radicalisation, clear anti-Semitism, with young people holding up posters calling for the eradication of Israel, they might not even have known what they were doing, but I sure as hell bet that the people who put them up to it knew what they were doing. Detective Sergeant Christopher Dean, who'd been following my work for 4 years, it seems. 4 bloody years. Is claiming, having reviewed this post, I believe that a crime of racially aggravated public order under Section 31 of the Crime and Disorder Act has been committed. And apparently, me warning against radicalising young people has caused harassment, alarm or distress, which is, get this, racially or religiously aggravated. Racially or religiously aggravated. Me warning about young people being radicalised is religiously or racially. I'm the racist. I'm the racist. He goes on to define what racially or religiously aggravated is within the Crime and Disorder Act. That I have demonstrated The offender demonstrates towards the victim of the offence hostility based upon the victim's membership of a racial or religious group. Don't be stupid, Sally. Don't be stupid. And that the offence is motivated wholly or partly by hostility towards members of a racial or religious group. My motive for the last 25 years has been to protect children and young people and keep our country safe from nutcases. That is what my motive has been for 25 years of my life. And this scumbag comes and arrests me on the basis I'm the racist because he's received a complaint from Oldham Council. And then he continues with his armchair expertise. He feels that the comment regarding Muslim victimhood and referring to the protesters as anti-Semitic satisfy the racially or religiously aggravated part of the offence. And that me claiming that a councillor speaking, the leader of the council and the MP speaking at an event where young people are holding up banners calling for the eradication of Israel is abusive. Me objecting to that is abusive. Thank you, Pauline. It's that, isn't it? At the bottom of the post, remember, so this is not even my post. He's making reference to what I've said about, in reference to Lewis Quigg, and I'll bring that up in a second. For the Muslim, never mind the many. Still up there, by the way. Still doing well. This is a lengthy document spanning 3 pages of typed A4. That's because I'm an intelligent man, you piece of shit. I write. I think I write well. I write articulately, I write clearly, and I present factual information and take people on a journey to a series of conclusions or questions that I ask at the end. That's what I've been doing for the last 4 years when you arrested me. Now coming up now, over 5 years. I wrote documents that prime ministers read. This is a lengthy document spanning 3 pages of typed A4 and predominantly targets AROOJ SHAH. I don't target anyone in that. I object to anti-Semitism, which is what you've been going on about. The vast majority of this blog was making for uncomfortable reading. Why is it uncomfortable reading? And apparently in reviewing the content of his blog, I've had to balance the application of the law with the overriding articles of the ECHR, predominantly Article 9, freedom of thought and freedom of expression. But in spite of that, he thinks I've committed a racially aggravated public order offence. Way above his pay grade, way above his intellect, Gary. I don't claim I'm bright, but I'm not stupid. And I'm not a fool. And I know radicalization when I see it. And children waving banners calling for the eradication of Palestine, whilst an MP and the council leader is giving a speech. It alarms me. And I felt compelled to speak out. As someone who's seen young people go on a journey to blow themselves up, I felt compelled to speak out. Yeah, John. People are entitled to voice their opinions without interference by public authority and regardless of frontiers. If that was the case, why have you been following what I've been writing for the last 4 years by your own admission? I would suggest, so remember, it's gone from I feel to now suggesting that there are several items which would be regarded as offensive within this blog. So he gives reference. Many of her mainly Pakistani Muslim supporters returned to their unlawful campaign of attacking the Jewish-owned Elbit factory in the town. For many of the radicalized, angry young men in the crowd. So he's claiming, he's inferring that I'm claiming it is Pakistani Muslims who are attacking a Jewish-owned business. And that a number of other participants have been radicalized. He's seeking offense out on behalf of people he's not even spoken with or have not even reported. Remember, it was Oldham Council who reported me. He is some sort of third person. This would be offensive towards Muslims and the Pakistani community. I'm a bloody Muslim. So he's hypothesizing who I might offend. No one said they've been offended by this. He's hypothesizing. The Labour Party, and he's quoting me here. The Labour Party saw fit to openly protest alongside criminals that wanted this factory closed down, repeatedly attacking and damaging the factory, including a sinister reenactment of Kristallnacht. The silence from the council and most of the town's politicians is effectively seen as an endorsement by many in the town. Well, Robert Barnes wrote a letter at the time objecting to the council's silence, and many of you, all of you, objected to it. He would again suggest that this is probably the most offensive part of the blog, comparing the protest and subsequent criminal damage at the Ferranti factory to the horrific riots of 1938, Nazi-occupied Germany, aimed at massacre or expulsion of Jews, in which large swathes of Jewish businesses were destroyed and tens of thousands of Jewish men were arrested and placed in concentration camps. He objects apparently hypothesizing again this would be grossly offensive to members of the Jewish community and Holocaust survivors who went through unimaginable pain and distress during World War II. You dickhead. You absolute dickhead. He's claiming me using the word Kristallnacht and the sinister undertones of smashing the windows of a Jewish-owned building would actually cause offense to Jews. He's not spoken to a single Jewish person. He's not spoken to a single Holocaust survivor. But me objecting to windows being smashed because it's sinister The windows being smashed of a Jewish-owned building has sinister undertones because of the historical symbolism of Jewish windows being smashed during Kristallnacht. Can you even read? The police make it up as they go along, Julie. Greater Manchester police make it up as they go along. And this is indeed a superb example. And it gets worse for him, Gary, by Detective Sergeant. I don't think he's made Inspector. I don't think he ever will make Inspector. That epitomises why GMP are in accelerated special measures. He goes on to reluctantly agree that me objecting to AROOJ Shah's relationship with Mohammed Imran Ali Arishimi is not unlawful. But once again, I have considered the offence of racially aggravated public order. I believe that this would be the most appropriate crime for the following reasons. Defendant comments such as Pakistani Muslim supporters returned to their unlawful campaign of attacking the Jewish-owned Elbit factory of the town. Factually accurate, by the way. So they painted me out to be a racist on the back of this. They painted me out to be a racist and charged me. Well, they didn't charge me. They arrested me for a racially aggravated public order offence, sent it to the CPS, who sat on it for 6 months, and then disagreed with them and said, no, it's not racially aggravated, it's malicious communication. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of your money has gone so far on monitoring me for 4 or 5 years and attempting to criminalise me. A statement has been obtained from Councillor AROOJ Shah, and apparently she has been caused harassment, alarm and distress by the contents of this post and blog. Well, AROOJ Shah, you should not have gone and spoken at an event where children were waving banners calling for the eradication of Israel. And the business lawfully operating in this town, providing skilled jobs, having its windows smashed repeatedly and red paint daubed all over it. I expect my council leader to protect and support those businesses and educate our young people, rather than whip up, help whip up. You can call them protesters, DSD. I call them criminals. Smashing windows is criminality. You ready for more comedy? Mate, wait till we get to court on the other one. But on this one, I've got confirmation from the CPS that a senior prosecutor looked at it before making the charging decision. This is AROOJ Shah's witness statement. The first thing to note about a witness statement is it's dated the 6th of August 2021. They arrested me on the 23rd of July 2021. So they get her witness statement of how I've caused her alarm and distress and all the rest of that bollocks 2 weeks after they arrest me. So we're clear. DS Dean and his mates came and arrested me first before they'd even got a witness statement. They came and arrested me before they even got a witness statement. This is a setup. This was an attempted setup by Oldham Council in partnership with DS Dean through their Operation Hexagon, which is unlawful. At the end, I'm the current leader of Oldham Council, blah, blah, blah. At the end of June 2021, I was made aware of a post that was circulating online. This was a post on an open Facebook page called Recusant 9. I know this page is run by a man called Raja Mir, and I have been at the receiving end of his hate and abuse for around 3 years. No. I've been objecting to you politically, which we can legally do in a democracy. And as we're clear, we're clear. Even Greater Manchester Police have had to say, DS Dean has had to say that I have, even though they've been following me for 5 years, 4 years. My posts have not been unlawful or illegal, so they've not been hateful or abusive. I do not know Raja Mir or any of his friends and patrons personally. My only link to him prior to this campaign of harassment was as a member of staff at Jim McMahon MP's office, where Jim and his office were dealing with a number of complaints from parents and other concerned individuals about Mr. Mir's activities at his 2 free schools. Mr. Mir is clearly aggrieved that local MPs sought answers about alleged financial irregularities, blah, blah, blah. Listen, I'm not agreed about that at all. I was cleared. You lot made it up. That you're continuing to make up stuff. Which is why your mate McMahon is hiding behind parliamentary privilege. The online campaign of harassment is intentionally abusive, regularly threatening in tone, including repeated use of the phrase tick-tock as a direct threat of something happening to me and others. Absolutely. Tick-tock. Tick-tock, tick-tock, something called an election. We took you out. That doesn't mean we killed you. Maybe you've been hanging around gangsters too long. TikTok, in the context when I used TikTok, was time is running out. There's an election coming and we will beat you at the ballot box. That's clearly what we meant by TikTok. Although, remember I was arrested for that post for the Muslim Never Mind the Many, and the Facebook post linked to that. TikTok wasn't used, but in any case, what do you think I meant by TikTok? Time's running out. Indeed. So, much of what Mr. Mir writes is racist and Islamophobic. How? Where? Where is anything I write racist or Islamophobic? And intended, so she's claiming what I'm intending, to incite others to act and speak against me in a violent and threatening manner. Every time I consider his activity as a hate crime. Every time in the lead up to taking AROOJ Shah out, what I have encouraged people to do is vote. I'm not intending people to incite others to act and speak against you in a violent and threatening manner. I demonstrated very clearly what my intentions were. When I was knocking on the doors of South Chadderton, when Dean unlawfully tried to prevent me from campaigning and threatened he'd arrest me if I campaigned, I have encouraged people to vote. Vote, vote, vote. This particular post said, really pleased to see Lewis Quigg, blah, blah, blah. Right? I'll show the post in a bit, so there's no need to see the post now. At the bottom of the post was a link to a blog entitled For the Muslim, Never Mind the Many. This blog, written by Raja Mia, is aimed at me and openly, strongly criticises and belittles me and everything I am doing. Well, criticising you and belittling you and everything you are doing is not unlawful. You're a politician. I can criticise you and belittle your actions. That's not unlawful. Upon reading the Facebook post and the blog, I was absolutely gobsmacked at the vile remarks he was making, referring to ordinary people from Oldham as being radicalised. I maintain that a child holding up a banner calling for the eradication of Israel to be a clear example of radicalisation from my proven expertise in counter-extremism. What's your proven expertise in AROOJ SHAH? And comparing a protest outside a factory to Kristallnacht. Actually, if you read what I said, I didn't compare the protest outside a factory to compare it to Kristallnacht. I objected to the smashing of the windows of a Jewish-owned factory and the symbolism behind that. I found his comments deeply offensive, and they caused me a lot of distress to the point that I was in tears reading his words. This poison that he's relentlessly pushing online and the resulting online activity from his supporters and patrons has caused me untold distress. What, so we're now not allowed to question the political decisions of those who run our town? I'm sure you'd like it that way, but that's not how democracy works. It has had a serious impact on my mental and physical health, and has led me to fear for my life. How has it led you to fear for your life and the lives of my family? It is hard to list all of the individual incidences and impacts, as there have been so many over such a long period, but I would like to share some of the most significant. So she is now going to share some of the most significant. This is where it gets good. Since late 2019, the daily attacks and unlicensed abuse has caused me to suffer from depression and anxiety, which has affected my daily life. I have become withdrawn, struggled to concentrate and focus, and I've suffered long periods of insomnia. I have sought counselling and am receiving ongoing support as a result of the ongoing trauma I face. On the 27th of July 2020, during a particularly difficult period of harassment, which was affecting me and my family significantly, I noticed that my face had begun visibly drooping on one side. At this time, the ongoing online activity perpetrating by Mr. Mia was causing me a great deal of anxiety and stress. So we're clear, I was objecting to AROOJ Shah's friendship with the convicted heroin dealer, getaway driver of the Oldham cop killer, Dale Cregan. I was struggling to sleep or focus on everyday tasks. I sought the support of my GP, who referred me to the Department of Neurology at Salford Royal Hospital. After examination and discussion, the consultant neurologist diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder. That's what soldiers get in war zones. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Caused by the online abuse I was facing. I doubt for 1 minute that any neurologist would link me questioning you to you suffering this. And I genuinely, I'm sympathetic to anyone who suffers stress. Says a man who's been falsely accused of being arrested as part of a child sex exploitation investigation. He confirmed that this had caused physical damage to my face. The damage continues to cause a dropping to the left side of my face, and doctors cannot tell me whether this will be reversible. I went and investigated some of this in terms of the dropping of face towards one side. There are other things that can cause it. And I'll keep the most ridiculous because I wouldn't want to be inferring anything. And I'm not inferring anything. But there are other things that can cause that. Including, what's that injection you put in to get rid of your wrinkles? Botox, or whatever it is. Yeah, too much of that can cause drooping of a face. Thank you. It's that. Yeah. I don't know whether she has Botox or not. I'll leave it for those who know better. I know she'd have to have proven all of this in court, wouldn't she? Yeah. But she's blaming me for her face drooping or something. Yeah. Was I right to bring to public attention that at the time the deputy leader of Oldham Council hung off the arm of a convicted heroin dealer and celebrated her election victory with a man who'd kidnapped and tortured a young person? Is that not in the public interest? Well, the police clearly thought it was in the public interest because they didn't charge me for that. Thank you, Sally Ann. The cruel nature of the online comments about my appearance. I've not made any cruel nature of her comments about her appearance. It has further affected my confidence and undermined my ability and desire to make public appearances. A major part of my role as council leader. So she's blaming me for her face drooping. Yeah. Next one. In April 2020, while campaigning, the date is important, in April 2020, while campaigning for the upcoming local election, I was canvassing canvassing a street in Alexander Ward. I was knocking on doors when a man answered the door and began screaming abuse at me and my colleagues. He physically charged at us and attempted to assault my colleagues who was nearest to him. Is that not a police? If that was true, should that not have been reported to the police? Should that man not have been arrested or at the very least interviewed by GMP? He chased us onto and down the street to our cars. During this, he was screaming to me, "I know who you are," and making reference to the content by Mr. Mia and his Facebook page. So he actually wasn't making reference to me. He was making reference to content that he was aware of. who threw himself in front of my car to prevent me from leaving. Did you report him to the police? I can't understand that. He had read and been incited to act in this manner. I believe he had read and been incited to act in this manner by the content created by Mr. Mia. So she's inferring that she believes that what I had said had caused someone who I had never met to be angry at her. I am now afraid to be out alone in public in case others who have seen Mr. Mia's false accusations. If any of my accusations were false, I would have been arrested and charged. And slurs seeking to harm me. I've never sought to harm AROOJ SHAH. I would never seek to harm anyone. I achieved what I sought to do, which was have her beaten in an election. Due to my role, I am a recognisable figure in the local area and so feel unable to carry out normal activities like shopping or exercising in public. Many of you have seen her in shopping centres and hanging out in places. But what's important here is reference to her in April 2020 out campaigning. She was out campaigning during lockdown. If an elderly gentleman opened up his door during lockdown to find some politicians from the campaign during a global pandemic, the height of the global pandemic, someone had knocked on my door campaigning during the height of the global pandemic, I don't think I would have been as charitable as this man. So she's admitting to being out campaigning during lockdown. And reporting an attempted assault on one of her colleagues and trying to link it back to me. Well, sorry, in April 2020, if your colleague had been, if you're out campaigning during lockdown, you're the one who should be arrested. And if someone attempted to assault your colleague, did you report it to the police? And trying to link me to someone who might have. Again, nothing so far on this article. It is John. Arrestable offence during lockdown, John. Admits to being out campaigning during lockdown. Here we go. In July 2021, somebody attacked my car outside my home, setting it on fire and destroying it and risking the lives of my neighbours. My information is that the car wasn't parked outside her home. Have I got that wrong? My information is that the car wasn't parked outside her home, but let's carry on. While police investigations into this crime are ongoing, I cannot help but feel I am a potential victim for further attacks due to Mr. Mia's ongoing harassment. His recent insinuation that the crime was committed by me or people known to me as a setup or insurance fraud has led to multiple death threats being issued online in response to his comments, including multiple people stating they wished I was in the vehicle when it was set alight. Well then, you know what should happen to those multiple people who wanted you to be in the car when it was set alight? I hope they get arrested. But seeing as though it's been well over a year since this, and no one has been arrested, I question how truthful this allegation is. Question. The videos raised, the leaked video raised, well, it clearly proved, despite Jim McMahon's claims, this wasn't me. The door was unlocked, AROOJ SHAH, wasn't it? AROOJ SHAH, issue a statement. Was the door unlocked of your car? Did you park your car outside your house? Was the door unlocked? It was parked down the street at the side, well away from our house. Thank you, Sheila. Was the door unlocked? Why did these lads smash the window afterwards of an open door? Why have the police over a year later not charged anyone? If that happened to me, I'd be making a public statement screaming at the lack of police progress. Not going and doing a thumbs up with the policeman, with the most senior policeman saying, isn't he great? And taking an award off him. So again, nothing so far on what I've been actually arrested on. He and his friends and patrons regularly create and share content that is designed to incite those with racist and Islamophobic views to speak out and act against me. All of you how can I be promoting Islamophobic views when all the time I'm very, very clear that I am a Muslim? And as for the racist views, you all saw what I did to that patriotic alternative organisation recently. And how angry they got because I single-handedly quashed any progress they were making in our town. He has repeatedly made accusations I am part of and in fact helped lead an Asian cartel. He has made reference to me helping to create a caliphate in Oldham and has repeatedly, actually I made reference to Jim McMahon. But you carry on. She's trying to link herself to the murder of Joe Cox MP, and somehow she's seen parallels of my incitement apparently. The fear is not only held by me but my family and close friends. Most recently, an article about me being named as part of a BAME power list was shared on Proud of Oldham and Saddleworth Facebook page. A page that regularly shares Mr. Mia's content, so clearly I didn't share it, did I? Did I share it? And whoever said strangling comes to mind, I don't care. If you, why didn't you report them? Get them arrested. Did I do it? No. So there's nothing there of what I did. In addition, on a number of occasions, Mr. Mia has intimated that I'm promiscuous. I haven't. Compared me to sex workers. No. And claimed that I have sexually transmitted diseases. This has caused untold distress to me and my family. Absolute nonsense. While these comments may have seemed less damaging than others I have faced in my community, these are serious accusations to be levelled at a woman and bring a significant amount of shame on individuals and their families. Okay. AROOJ Shah, your mate, Irish Shimmy, who is convicted in a court, made allegations I am gay. Tell me how that is interpreted in a Muslim community. Your mate Neil Wilby has gone online and posted questions where he's claimed I've come out gay. For those of you who are in doubt about this, being gay in Islam and coming out gay in a Muslim community is an open place. You're asking to be killed. My brother has been told that his sister is a slag. Why? How should I know? How should I know why your brother has been told that you're a slag? How should I know? Maybe he dated you. Maybe he wanted to date you. Maybe he's seen you somewhere. I don't know. It's got nothing to do with me why your brother's mate is calling you a slag. And my mother has faced shame as she fears what people will be saying about her daughter. AROOJ SHAH, long before I came along, you were the councillor for St Mary's. You were beaten in the local election where a record number of Muslim women came out and voted against you. That had nothing to do with me. People in Gloating had already made their minds up about you long before I came along, which is why they voted you out. This is not just words on the internet. This is not fair comment or criticism. This is a coordinated and calculated campaign of harassment intended to hurt and distress me, and even more dangerously, intended to incite others to speak and act against me. Yes, absolutely. Incite others to speak and act against you by voting you out. Apparently, I'm intended to torture her. Multiple incidences where this content has caused people to threaten my life, either online or in person. Well, how many of these people have been charged and convicted? How many of these people have been charged or convicted? 0. Tell me, AROOJ, who they are. I'll report them to the police for you. Raja Amir is deliberately and systematically running a campaign which seeks to make me a figure and focus of hate. It has worked with hundreds of abusive messages repeating the narrative he has created. Where's the Elbit stuff? Where in her statement is her specific? How does she find... Well, is she finding the term crystal nut racist? Is she finding the term radicalized racist or Islamophobic? What? One sentence in all of that. The rest of this bullshit, bear in mind, they charged me on this. The rest of this bullshit is she doesn't like my campaign bringing to public attention her and her actions and her criminal associations. Thank you, Sally Ann. What has her statement got to do with the fact that Detective Sergeant Christopher Dean falsely, maliciously arrested me? He took this statement 2 weeks afterwards. He'd come and arrested me. Before that, it's exactly that, isn't it, Maggie? Did she honestly think that she was untouchable and the solicitors in the court would not have asked for evidence and proof? It's an absolute joke. The Oldham Times ran with the headline, "I was arrested as part of a child sex exploitation investigation. This is why I was arrested." this bullshit involving Detective Sergeant Christopher Dean on some mission after 4 years of following my work and having a file on me to try and criminalise me. He came and arrested me on his interpretation of who might be offended, hypothetically, by me using the word crystal nut. And she objected 2 weeks later to my concerns that children were being radicalised, and apparently that was Islamophobic, when Muslim girls were holding up banners calling for the eradication of Israel, repeating Hamas slogans. This is DS Dean's statement. I am Detective Sergeant 16191 Christopher Dean of Greater Manchester Police. On Friday the 23rd of July, around 6:20 a.m. he came in the company of, for those who have asked me how many, 1, Sergeant Kerr. PC Atherton is 2, PC James is 3, PC Eastwood is 4, OPC Naylor is 5, PC Norcross is 6, including Dean, that's 7, and there was 1 policeman in the van outside. 8. 8 of them. Wearing police stab vests. 8 of them. 6:20 in the morning. This is what I said. If you would have called me, I would have come to the police station. After some loud and repeated knocking on the front door of Mia's basement flat, the door was opened by a male. Well, I'm sorry, but if you knock on my door at 6:20 in the morning, the chances are that someone's in bed. Eight of them came to arrest me when they didn't even have a statement, Sally. 8 of them. I spoke to one of my neighbours in passing, Pauline. This is one of my newer neighbours in passing this week. Her and her boyfriend, husband, I'm not quite sure, live in one of the other apartments. She parks her car next to mine. She's a nice young woman. She made reference to me whilst we were passing in the corridor that she'd seen me in the court, or seen my name in court papers, or seen me a newspaper that I've been in court. And she'd asked a woman, because she rents the flat off of a woman who I know, who used to live with me, used to live in that flat. And she said she'd spoken to such and such a body, and they'd had a chat, and that I should hold my head up high, because everyone in the town, it's a small town mostly, everyone in the town knows what's going on. They've all seen me catch the train in the morning, potter to the co-op, help my elderly neighbours and so on, play outside with my daughter. And they all know what's going on. And I should hold my head up high. So that's what my neighbours think, despite these people. How is this proportionate? Not got evidence and not took a witness statement, then decide to do a police raid with 8 officers and a person with no criminal record. And you've been to my flat, haven't you? Gary, it's not a basement. Makes you sound like it's wrong. No, it's not a basement. I have nice windows. Mia was allowed to get dressed and have a glass of water. He was taken outside and placed in the rear cell cage of a livered police personal carrier. And this is another one, Detective Constable O'Hallahan. He then proceeded to answer, "This is a politically motivated arrest," to each question asked of him. He then proceeded to answer, "This is a politically motivated arrest." I'd like you to share with me, if it wasn't a politically motivated arrest, what was it? Nine months they dragged this out. The other one will be 2 years by the time it's over and done with. Remember, I had no idea they were coming. Some of you have been visited me. There you go. On gaining entry, I immediately went upstairs into open plan, living room and kitchen area. They took a laptop and iPad, blah, 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 other sort of stuff. Concluded at 7:05. So on and so on, it carries on. Lads, didn't find anything illegal, did you? You came, what were you thinking? I might have some cannabis, some cocaine or something. Didn't find anything, did you? It's because I am what I say I am. The reason you guys have been chasing me for 5 years and got nowhere is because I'm not a criminal. Don't be silly. Don't be silly, Pauline. No, Sally, I've not got my belongings back yet. And look, so we're clear of how well they searched, looking for anything and everything. Maybe hoping to find some drugs. They took a yellow handwritten notebook located within a rucksack on the floor next to the sofa in the living area. They took a notebook from inside of my rucksack. And so we're clear who came. PC Eastwood is trying to be smart. At approximately 6:25 on Friday the 25th of July 2021, I was on duty with other officers. See how he omits how many other officers? From the neighbourhood task force when we attended to make an arrest on behalf of CID. To give PC Eastwood his due, he did not put me in handcuffs after an exchange of looks between himself and DC Dean. I think the hope from DS Dean, Detective Sergeant Christopher Dean, that I was placed in handcuffs and marched out. But PC Eastwood actually did not do that. I think he was the youngest police officer there as well. So they clearly, passed it on to the poor young officer. No. Because what I've said or what the evidence they've got is already published, Sally. It's published on social media, isn't it? It's published either on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. It's not the contents of my equipment. That was taken purely as an attempt to try and prevent me from campaigning in the lead up to the election. I have no doubt of that whatsoever. Mate, I'm very clear. I'm very, very clear on what DS Dean and his mates have done. This was a textbook case of malicious prosecution, an attempt at a malicious prosecution. 8 police officers to arrest a man with no criminal record because DS Dean interpreted something as might potentially cause offence to a demographic group or 2 demographic groups of whom he had never spoken to and no one had complained from. The most significant of which was him objecting to how a Holocaust survivor might have interpreted my use of the word crystal nut when I was objecting to the anti-Semitic attack on a Jewish-owned factory. I'd like to think a Holocaust survivor would be appalled at what was taking place and would be supportive that someone of my demographic had the courage to speak up on behalf of them. And this is the post. They openly call me a racist now, don't they? Based on the back of that. Because no one... Hey, MEN. Hey, Charlotte Green. Where's your report that AROOJ Shah's case against me collapsed? Where is it? You're doing to Robert Barnes exactly what you tried to do to me. You're doing to Robert Barnes exactly the same. This is the post. Really pleased to see Lewis Quigg, the chairman of the Conservatives, speak out against what clearly includes an anti-Semitic group of protesters and criminals involved in the repeated attack on the Elbit factory in Oldham. The silence from Labour Party politicians that do know better is disgraceful. I am in no doubt whatsoever that the endorsement of this oversimplified Free Palestine Muslim victimhood narrative spearheaded by the Labour Party politicians Debbie Abrahams and Councillor AROOJ Shah has created fertile breeding ground for the radicalisation of a new generation of young people in our town. I fear that these actions and the behaviour of the town's leaders, alongside continuing inaction from absent senior council officers, is helping create the next Salman Abedi and Shamima Begum. Politicians that care about the future of our town and want to protect our children from being brainwashed by jihadists must speak out or risk what I fear will be the inevitable outcome. It is our responsibility to protect our children and young people, and it is our responsibility, particularly the responsibility of those in senior political positions, to safeguard our communities from extremism. And I, to this day, despite everything they've done to me and everything they'll continue to do to me, refuse to remain silent whilst children are waving banners calling for the eradication of Israel. Hamas slogans. Now, if you don't know your history, or you don't know how extremists operate, that isn't on me, Detective Sergeant Christopher Dean. Exactly. Because that article objects to both AROOJ Shah and Debbie Abrahams. I've lost a couple of you, a dozen or so of you. Sorry, I've not realised it's got not until 11:30. But I wanted to share with you how scant and contrived the evidence was through which they tried to convict me. And how complicit Detective Sergeant Christopher Dean and his inaccelerated special measures proven paedophile protecting police force have been. If you find my transmissions of value, and I'll share this one tomorrow or the day after, I'll just copy it across and try and minimal edit it and share it. I hope to see some of you on Thursday at this meeting. It's the only way we'll beat them, is by putting up candidates who are brave enough to stand against them. I am in no doubt, as I finish, that Robert Barnes has been set up and the police are behaving in an overzealous way, in a way they would not do with Labour Party politicians. And it involves a number of individuals. The meeting, I think, is that rescheduled, unless I've got it wrong, it's the rescheduled Brighton Independent meeting. The first one was scheduled, and I think the Queen died just the day before, didn't she? My name is Raja Mir. 5 years. DS Dean. See you in court, lad. A very, very good evening.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.